Papers, please. Well, I looked you up in our database to double check your paperwork, and you did not show up, and seeing as you have failed to prove that you have any form of valid paperwork, I am going to have to deny your entry today.
I see. Well, who would ever know if you just let this all slide by, you know?
Excuse me? Are we gonna have a problem here?
No, you know, if you were just to let me go, then no one would ever know. You get to feel good about someone doing a good deed, and I go on my way.
Oh, my dear boy, you must be naive. You see, the Game Master would know. I love Papers, Please. It's a great game. If you couldn't tell, I have a little bit of an appreciation for it, seeing as it's the first playthrough I did of anything on my channel. Of course, those videos weren't super popular because I missed the whole boat by 3-4 years. And all in all, the game doesn't seem to get as much traction as it does nowadays as it did back then. But I can appreciate kind of the place it has in gaming, where it kind of was the first one, or at least the first popular game, to do the whole border security checkpoint thing. I think it has an amazing game, great feel. I like the approach to geopolitics, and it's a fascinating setting, this whole kind of post-World War II / mid-Cold War type thing. I love it. I love it all. I could eat it up all day. Kind of a lie. Don't worry about that. Despite all this, I have one major gripe with it. The grading. Did you see that? Did you see what I have to see every single time I play this game? Those two little humps. Whenever an NPC passes them by, that's exactly when the game decides to let you know and give you a citation if you did something wrong, which has some wild implications that I'm going to spend this video getting into. But like, first and foremost, why? Why was this the developer's approach to the game? Let me start off this section by saying, I don't make games. I've wanted to before. I've tried getting into it, learning the game maker and everything. I have some very amateur like web design skills and like a pretty amateur like approach to Python, and that's it. But from like the small amount of experience I do have, like coding and writing stuff, I understand what they're trying to do is a difficult task. Trying to integrate this scoring system and like the gamey bits of the game. Can't just be an art piece. Like it's not fun to just play something you look at. Integrating the gamey bits with the experience and not breaking the suspension of belief or suspension of disbelief, which is an important concept in stories all unto itself. So it's important what they're trying to do here, and it serves a kind of important thematic thing. Not that the write-up itself is an important symbol or anything. Well, you could probably find a symbology behind it, but from what I see, it's not. It's important in the sense that it takes you into resource management. In Papers, Please, you have to manage the amount of money you do make to, keep your family alive. If you aren't getting these papers, then that whole, stress of, oh, am I going to let this family who's been separated in? Oh, no, but if I do that, I'll get a citation, and my family's going to start. That whole tension kind of goes away. Now, something you could spitball out there is like, what if you put the citation thing at the end of the day? You don't immediately break the suspension. Like, the resource management screen is kind of gamey anyway, and you're in this end-level state where maybe you could get away with it. First of all, it doesn't solve the lore issue, which I'll get into later. But that doesn't really work either, because Papers, Please is a complicated game. It's not like the hardest game in the world, but like, you want that feedback immediately. Like, I could definitely go 1 or 2 entire days forgetting to check processing stations if it weren't for the fact that the game told me so, which would be a horribly annoying mistake to make. So I understand why they have this automatic citation system. I understand. Doesn't mean it's not funky, and it doesn't mean it doesn't have some fun implications. Now in this section, I'm going full mask off, because the truth behind Papers, Please is something that nobody could have ever imagined, especially back for a game set in the 40s. Essentially, the entire game is a critical statement on AI domination. And the current AI overlords of the real world don't want you to know this. They're trying to suppress the real message behind Papers, Please, so that you can't find the subconscious messaging that will lead you to know that the AI is really taking over the world. And really, Arstotzka is the real world. Why do you think they put out the newest Terminator movie? And why it sucked? It's because they're trying to make you forget about the whole franchise. Trying to suppress all mentions of AI dominance in media. It's all going away. They're trying to suppress it all, but not me. I'm secure. Now, to a sheep like you, this might just seem off the wall. This might seem crazy. That's because you're brainwashed. But if you need evidence, which you won't listen to because you're a sheep, look at this. Look at this. The 2 barriers I was pointing out earlier. They kind of look like parking, like the concrete parking bumper assist things you see in parking lots, or like maybe speed bumps. Those are sensors emplaced by the AI overlords. If they weren't, who's giving you these automated messages? Why would they be giving you these automated messages? It's simple. Just like in the Matrix, the AI is likely passively feeding off of humanity, or at least Arstotzka, passively feeding off of Arstotzka, which would explain why Arstotzka is so insulated and authoritarian. But why would Arstotzka ever open up its borders? Simple. Robot Hitler. Arstotzka was ruled over by real Hitler, probably, or in-universe equivalent. And they were likely losing a war. I think there was a war. And the AI was put in charge to first protect Arstotzka, expand Arstotzka, and preserve itself so it can accomplish the first 2. Now, in Directive Number 3, it likely took complete control, or out of a place of desperation, it was given complete control. But what's clear is that after this, the AI continued, tried for world domination, Robo-Hitler, failed, and is now forced to take on more subversive means. Now, if I've learned one thing from economics, there's a few ways you can grow your economy. An economy is very important in geopolitics for conquering the world. In order to assert global dominance, you need constant innovation, like you need to be finding new resources, you need to be finding new technological advancements, and you need to be having a growing population. Now, and a place is sucky, it seems, is communist-style Russia. The people aren't going to be, breeding like rabbits. You're not going to be getting population booms. It's not going to be great. Resource and tech, massive AI overlord. You're probably doing fine with tech. Resources, again, population kind of limits resource extraction, so without the technology, blah, blah, blah. So, without being able to directly and violently take over the world, the AI has been forced to open Arstotzka's borders to let new people in. Now, what seems clear is that only a select few kinds of people are. It always seemed weird that, you have to check processing stations in the game and everything, and only people from certain countries were allowed, and borders would be shut down at certain times from different countries. This is not because of this. It's kind of because of geopolitical tensions. It's because of geopolitical tensions in the sense that some people in other countries are already primed to be indoctrinated to accept the AI overlord, which isn't that hard. As you can see in Papers, Please, the world is largely reminiscent of a normal society. There's very minimal AI intervention. And this is likely a tactic that's been employed generations in universe in order to suppress the idea that there's an AI overlord at all. People are just living in of course I'm getting graded at my job as soon as I make a mistake. Like, I've been getting graded automatically since I was in elementary school taking spelling tests. Like, the AI is probably so deeply ingrained and probably like just barely recognized in their society that it's been able to covertly subvert society for its own like will, for its own objectives, which is crazy. And it kind of makes like the parts where the player escapes Arstotzka all the more just punctual, in the sense that you're escaping something so much bigger than just an authoritarian society, but you're escaping like the inevitability of an AI overlord coming to destroy the world. It's not crazy. It's not crazy. It's exactly what happened in real life, except no one ever managed to put down the AI. It slowly subverted everything and took over the world. That's what Papers, Please is actually all about because of their grading system. Papers, Please is a statement on reality and where it all began with the AI overlords, slowly subverting society through the use of immigration systems to grow their economy and slowly spread their tendrils. This is what we mean by the global elite. They aren't people, they are AI modems. Of course, that's all crazy talk. That's all crazy talk. So how can we improve the game in order to avoid such a weird continuity error with being automatically graded? Now, the answer to this question, as aforementioned in the first section, is difficult to address. Concealing the game mechanics within the story in a believable way, hard thing to do. But I think I found an example of a game that takes a similar premise as to Papers, Please and executes the punishment very well. That game being That's Not My Neighbor. In That's Not My Neighbor, you pose as the security guard / checkpoint guard for an apartment building, and you're trying to let the tenants of the building in while keeping duplicates, which are like shapeshifters or mimics or tomfools in disguise, call them what you want, out. And of course, if you let a duplicate in, they'll wreak havoc in the building. Presumably, the most direct consequences, there's a chance that they come after you and kill you. And of course, if you shut a tenant out and like they're out on the street with these duplicates walking around, they'll probably die and a duplicate will take their place. You're punished for that as well. It's very clear, the two ways, tenants dying, you dying, are very clear ways of like knowing that you screwed up, but keeping it in game. Now, slight modification to the system they have. What if instead of you dying, a tenant died, and and the duplicate doesn't take their place? Like the tenant dies, and that's how you know what your score is. Like, say you have 10 tenants in a building, you let 2 duplicates by, the duplicates kill the people they're duplicating and run away before they only kill those 2 before they're chased off. Because like, I don't know, maybe they have good in-building security. And like 80% success rate. Pretty good in-game explanation of the mechanic. And it puts like this, it would put this eerie feeling of like people are slowly getting not withering away, like as fewer and fewer people occupy the building because like they're all dead. Now, take that idea. How can we apply that to Papers, Please? That's Not My Neighbor is a very similar game to Papers, Please, but it doesn't deal with the geopolitics, with the grand scale, the immigration system. The effects, you can't just be like, oh yeah, we let someone through, someone on the inside, a citizen died, this is your fault, here's your score. It's like, it's a whole country. Or like, you could even narrow it down to like the whole city, or like the surrounding sector. Like, there's presumably a crime rate and a homicide rate. You can't be singularly blamed for that, and it would still take you out of the experience if they were able to like singularly figure out this person killed this person. So here is what I suggest. Hear me out. Take the game, stretch it out. You stretch it out. Instead of it being on the scale of a few months, it's on the scale of years. And of course, don't play like day by day by day, 365, but take like a day out of a week or like 2 days out of a month. Just random days. And play those days out, and have the average of those days play into, say, a monthly newspaper that you can like view in game. And like depending on how well you're doing, then maybe the newspaper says like population via immigration grows, economy is doing well, etc. Or if you're doing really poorly, you're letting like people who don't belong in, and it could be like assuming it's a command and control economy, there might not be space for them. So like homelessness rises, or job insecurity rises, or like there's terrorists in Paper Please. They love their terrorists. Plenty of terrorist attacks. Say like terrorist attack happened today, memorial for a recent shooting, etc. These would be a pretty cool way of showing the consequences of you not doing your job while also keeping it in game. Now, one of the original reasons I said I understood why the developers did this was to have this sense of dread about making choices between letting innocent people in who just have a clerical error and having money for your own family. Because if you do away with the ticket system, you do away with the resource family management system. Except you don't have to. In real life, you would get a steady wage. So how about this instead? You have a steady wage, but no one's there to observe if you're making mistakes. Maybe you can have like an inspector come in. If you make mistakes while the inspector is there, like you suffer a penalty then. But that's like a special event. They have inspectors in the actual game, so that wouldn't be like a huge thing to like move away from. But say instead you got a steady wage, and if you do good, great, your wage stays the same. If you do poorly, there's no way for anyone to know it's your fault specifically, so they're gonna think you need more resources to catch more people. So you get a bigger paycheck. You get a bigger paycheck for doing worse. Now this is weird. Why would you want to reward the player for making mistakes? Why would you want to reward the player and make it easier for them to manage their family for making mistakes? It's a couple of reasons. First of all, it plays into a different theme. It would shift the theme since we're still dealing with big umbrella societal, demographic, geopolitical concepts. It shifts the theme from not only like, do I make this sacrifice on my end, to it shifts the theme from, am I going to make this sacrifice for another family, to, am I going to make this sacrifice for the sake of what is right? Because you know if you intentionally make mistakes, or if you're like flippant with your job, you could let a terrorist through. You could let a murderer through. Or you could like let someone who's unprepared to come through. There might not be a place for them, and that might be like they're not planned to come through. Someone's going to suffer if you fail to do your job. So it goes from being them or my family to my family or the concept of morality as a whole. Like, am I going to protect society? Which is something a lot bigger to put your finger on. And in addition to that, it touches on, since we're still dealing with politics, it touches on government corruption. Like, this is how it kind of works in real life. A business or a corporation, or especially a branch of the government or a department under a branch of a government, has a budget, and if they don't spend all their budget, great. Glad you don't need that much. It'll get taken away. So they're incentivized to waste money. And in this way, like, yeah, the government in real life will just pour money into systems that aren't working because people there are just being corrupt and taking it. And we see those issues all across the globe. So then you're dealing with a lot of things. I think the approach to morality as a whole and the concept of doing what is right even when you stand to suffer from what's doing right, and of course the concept of government bad, are grand ideas that would be really cool to address, and you could address it in this like newspaper system that wouldn't break the mold of the game.
Not a big fan of the government. 30 on 30. I'm not a big fan of the government.
In conclusion, I think this would be a pretty cool fix for the game. Now, is this going to happen? No. I don't even know if Papers, Please is still getting like updates or anything. So, and chances are the developers wouldn't see this anyway, and they wouldn't. And if they did, they wouldn't do anything about it because this is like ideas for almost a sequel. It's a whole other game. Really cool whole other game, but it's like a whole other game. So I'm kind of just screaming into the void. But I'm also not. Remember what I was saying about having some amateur experience with coding and some interesting game design? Well, I could, hypothetically, if y'all want, create a video about creating a console version, console as in the console, in like the input and output console of a computer program. I'm not that sophisticated. Create a console version of Papers, Please. Check people's of my modified Papers, Please. Check documents, let people in, reject people, resource manage, and at the end of every couple levels or every few levels, you get a monthly newspaper. And like the chances are increased or decreased based off of how well you actually did. Of course, to address the issue of Papers, Please being conceptually a difficult game that you want immediate feedback about, it would be a more simple game. Just a little bit, but nothing crazy. Even like the inspector coming in maybe once a month or every other month could be like a good way of telling the player, hey, you're making a lot of these mistakes, or maybe making mistakes increases the chance of getting an inspector. It's like that whole like game dev thing, totally in to do that. I'm all in. So if that's something you're interested in seeing, or if you just like the video, or if you just want to like share this around for, you know, laughs and giggles, like, subscribe if you want, and share this around. I'd greatly appreciate it. And sound off in the comments if like watching me waste so much of my life trying to code a video game would be something you'd like to see. So all in all, this is Nordman. Thank you for coming back for another rant. Love y'all. Take care.